second thing worth pointing out here is the B-plot,
Let me make sure I'm
featuring
fucking
Spencer
recording
and Freddy's
for
mom.
goodness.
In the story, Freddy's mother has become upset over her lack of things to do now that her son has a job and is away from the house. And she essentially begins visiting Spencer and babying him in lieu of her own son. Now, there's one sequence in the subplot which I think accidentally says a lot about the character. In the scene, Spencer is working on one of his sculptures and asks Freddy's mother to hand him a screwdriver. She warns him that the tip is pointy, which Spencer scoffs at before he reaches out and accidentally stabs himself with the device. Now, what I think is recognizable about this scene is the fact that Freddy's mother purposefully has the screwdriver pointed out. Logically, she could and should have pointed the handle towards him instead. But by handing him the end that could be dangerous, she asserts her role as mother as something essential, a subtle character detail which implies a greater motivation to her actions. Anyways, after Sam is fired and Carly begins fighting the changes to the show, the TV producer eventually realizes that his changes to the concept of iCarly could lead to something bigger and better. And so he creates, literally, the exact same sitcom pilot he had at the start of the show, except it now stars that dinosaur mascot.
But Michelle, why would you accept 2 dates to the prom without telling either boy about the other?
Because, Dad, Luke is so sweet, but Brandon is so hot.
There's clearly a greater purpose and lesson to this episode. TV producers in the early 2000s, and even today, look at the internet as a source of a new age of content that they can milk and exploit. Yet their lack of understanding in what makes that material actually worth something means that they'll always revert to their initial instincts to make something unreservedly derivative. Now, up to this point, for the most part, I have been discussing episodes which I had a somewhat positive experience rewatching. But what about the direct opposite? Were there any episodes that I disliked to the extent of regretting this project? The answer can be found in Season 1, Episode 13. I am your biggest fan.
Oh, that
Let's break down
episode
what I
fucking
find
makes
so
me wanna
terrible
shoot
about
myself.
this story. While
That-
going through
oh
emails
my
sent
God,
in by
it's like the
viewers,
worst
Sam and Carly
episode
discover
of the
one from a
show.
fan who lives in Washington
No, I don't
and
know,
wants to know if they would
like,
ever
it's-
consider
that's a
having a
trash
live
episode.
audience. The fan also claims to be their biggest supporter, and the trio decide to invite her onto the show in order to create a positive experience. However, almost from the moment that this character steps on screen and begins speaking, the tone of the show shifts in a way that's initially hard to define.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm on iCarly. Hey. Hi.
I'm not really sure how else to describe
Dude,
this,
I fucking like
but from
almost
where I'm
FC
sitting,
past
Mandy
FSA
is
and it's
coded
just
to
casual
be
online lobby.
neurodivergent, and the entire comedy of this episode
I'm telling you,
derives
like,
from the fact
first
that
run past
neurodivergent
FSA, if
people
I can keep
are
my nerves
annoying
at a
to be
minimal,
around and cause
then
problems
in the
for
bag.
non-neurodivergent people. What is this, the Big Bang Theory?
That was my impression of a duck.
I need
Here
to
comes
itch
the
my
cat.
cheek, but like I can't.
This is easily one of the most painful episodes
So-
of television that I have ever had to sit through. I find it so hard to imagine someone pitching this episode to a writer's room. To have someone stand up and go, "Hey, you know who sucks? Autistic children!" As everyone else around them starts going, "Woo! Someone had to say it!" I think this episode
Someone
really
had to
breaks
say
down
it.
the inherent paradoxical nature of iCarly. You see, iCarly really exists as a total embrace of the sort of lol random humor which had developed on the early internet. Let's have a random hat party or send text messages with our toes, haha, banana phone. But at the same time, the show also goes out of its way to mock and belittle anything which is divergent from a certain kind of randomness. So it's cool to be different, but not cool to be different. One thing that stands out to me about season 1 is that there's this running joke where the cast keeps running into a kid who likes beatboxing, and they hate him. Like a lot.
No one enjoys that.
This has always stood out to me as kind of weird because I knew several kids throughout my entire school career who were the beatboxing kid. And even if they weren't good at it, everyone loved them because that was just a cool thing to be able to do when you were a kid in the early aughts. And second off, why is that the thing that the characters in this show hate? Like, being the girl who talks about how she loves jerky, that's cool. Being the kid who takes his shirt off in public, that's cool. Being the kid who likes beatboxing, we would kill you if we could.
This is going to be something that continues to be an ongoing problem throughout all the different seasons and spin-offs of iCarly, so I don't want to get too intensively into it right here. But on that note, we are now officially, basically, at the end of our Season 1 analysis, and we are ready to move on to Season 2. However, I wanted to find some creative way to mark a retrospective bookend to every season that we stopped to look at, and I came up with a really fun idea that I think you guys are going to end up liking. And the idea that I came up with is that we're going to end every season off with a total tally of the list of crimes committed by the main characters in that particular season. If there's a Season 1 episode you remember that I haven't brought up yet, it's probably because I saved it for this bit, so strap in!
Real quick, before we do jump into this, I want to send a big thanks out to Scott Augustine, who I met on Twitter when I asked around for experts on Washington law. He basically gave me his input based on his knowledge on which of these things are crimes and on what level of severity they exist, if they're like felonies or misdemeanors and so on and so forth. He was a huge help in this section, and I just wanted to make sure that I send out a big thanks to him and anyone else who just gave me a little bit of input on this script, because I'm not an expert in everything, I don't pretend to be, and people like Scott were a huge part of why I'm able to make this video. Starting us off more generally, we have crime number 1. Sam consistently and maliciously assaulting Freddy when she really doesn't need to.
What is the matter
I'm
with
so
you?
nervous right now.
Not me!
Leave me alone, Sam! Sam, what are you gonna... That was
We may or may not have to mention this every single
baby!
season. Moving on to
That's what we're waiting
crime
for!
number
That's
2.
what it's all
In
about!
Season 1, Episode 2, we see the cast fret over their weekly views stack.
Dude, alright. I did a very good fucking job of controlling my nerves there. Oh my god. Shit, there it is. Oh! Let's go!